And welcome back to a fresh episode of Sam's Business Growth Show. Excited to be joined by Danny Bluestone today. Danny is the founder and CEO over at Cyberduck, the original UX and digital transformation digital agency since 2005. Cyberduck are listed on the Deloitte top 500 fastest growing technology companies in Europe, the Middle East and Africa. And Danny was voted as one of the UK's top 100 influential people in digital by BIMA twice. Danny, a very warm welcome to the show, sir. How are you doing?
How's it going, everyone? Great to be here with you, Sam. So I've heard a lot about your podcast, and we've been chatting about it for a long time, and I've been really eager to join. So here we are.
Looking forward to it, man. Yeah, it's nice to finally chat, and a really interesting topic today. So we're going to be talking about digital transformation and how culture can grow our business. Us two running digital marketing companies is quite relevant, and everything that's happening in the times around us with COVID and all this kind of things. A lot of businesses are moving into digital or finding ways they can adapt and scale and transform to essentially where their users are. So it's going to be a good topic for conversation. So I really want to get stuck in. I want to go straight into it. And Danny, I'm quite curious to know, because I've got my own thoughts and ideas of what digital transformation is, but I really want to know how you describe digital transformation if you're talking to a prospective client or customer, and what your spin of it really is.
So I always start talking about digital transformation from a user's perspective. So obviously, first and foremost, I'm human, a person. To me, digital transformation is about what can digital do to me first and foremost, and then I look at family, friends. How is digital impacting their life, their lifestyle, and what more could it do? And then I kind of break things down, try and reverse engineer things to look at, okay, so if my trash is being collected once every 2 weeks, how could that experience potentially be better using digital channels? Obviously, there's still physical things that happen. There's a van that shows up, takes the trash. But how can I basically interface better with the people or council that's running that particular service? How can I interact better with my daughter's nursery who are sending paper reports? How can digital help with that? How can I interact better with the school and the online learning that is happening again with my other daughters? So there's all of these things that digital now is kind of involved with. In some industries, it's completely changed the way things are done. In other industries, particularly where there's like governments or big organizations involved, there's more bureaucracy, there's more red tape, there's more things, and there's more change that is yet to come. And digital transformation has kind of been rocked and rolled by COVID, because it's essentially been like this massive curveball that's forced a lot of businesses and a lot of organizations, and ultimately a lot of people, to think about, okay, we've got digital at our fingertips, but how can we really get access to all the products and services in a far better way? So that, in a way, is one of the things that I see when I think about digital transformation. How can digital really be used to make our lives better and kind of enrich those experiences, whether it's talking to friends who are in another part of the world that you haven't spoken to, or whether it is actually buying a pair of jeans online because you can't walk into a shop because there's a pandemic. So
Got it. And that's a really interesting way of putting it, because I'm sure a lot of people, and sometimes when I first heard the term in my head, I think of it as more of a digital marketing angle, transforming your business. When I first heard the term, I thought it means a company needs to get their website in shape, their digital marketing in shape, and essentially make sure that all their team members are fluent with what's going on with technology in the digital world. But the way you've described it there puts it in such a better human way in terms of improving interactions and enriching how you do business with people. So from a more of a business perspective, Danny, is there a way we could describe it for businesses that actually really want to get a hold of digital transformation? Is it about what I've just said there in terms of making sure their website is really focused on their end users and their ideal customers? Is that part of it, or is that just a small piece of the puzzle? Is there so much more that, let's say, small to medium-sized businesses need to think about?
Yeah, I mean, look, to small businesses, digital transformation provides massive opportunities. So Yeah, I mean, it's anything from like a small kind of, I guess, business that wants to sell, kind of, they used to potentially have a shop or go to a market stall, and now all of a sudden they find themselves on Etsy or eBay, or you know, I mean, obviously being aware of these kind of creative channels or creative entities like Etsy, for example, like the whole kind of gig economy, for example.
Mm.
It's put a lot of power in kind of people's hands, where all of a sudden they're producing things online, they're creating sort of custom t-shirts or custom shirts, or whatever. It can start off as a very kind of small business that you know is interacting, for example, with a very small segment of the population, because they don't have that outreach. And then all of a sudden, with kind of digital and the rise of digital, they have much more channels available to them to basically transact, to basically be creative. And obviously it happens in small businesses, it happens in large businesses as well, where companies can monetize products and services a lot more. I mean, if you think about people who provide services as opposed to, you know, those that provide products, people that provide services now can provide services through video and through Zoom and through chats, you know, like even personal trainers, you know, even they're doing, I mean, how many people do you know that get personal training through, let's say, Zoom now, right? So these are things that were unheard of even 6 months ago.
Sure.
It's transforming basically industries, it's transforming people's lifestyles. Yes, it's totally about kind of the websites, marketing and apps, but it's also kind of a mind shift in kind of how people behave as well, and also how they operate. So, you know, like if you think about creating an invoice, for example, years ago, you'd have to create a piece of paper, go to your printer, print it, scan things. Now you just, you know, you log into a website, you're generating your invoice. You don't have to drive to your accountant at the end of the year. The whole kind of process is done, digitized. Your accountant could be sitting in Timbuktu or somewhere like that, right?
Yeah, so true.
So
and on that note, Danny, is it more about our end users or our customers that we want to be doing business with, or is it also about streamlining the processes internally? So you mentioned things like slicking the invoice process, and no longer, like you say, we have to visit our account. We can do everything online through tools like QuickBooks or Xero, whatever we use, or even on our mobile phones. Is it also about improving internal processes as well as making life easier for our customers? Like you said, they're transitioning from doing stuff face to face to, if you're creative business, then you'd move to Etsy, or if you're a personal trainer, you might have moved to Zoom because everything's easier. And obviously everyone in the UK anyway is at home, and a lot of people in other countries as well. So is there ways it can help us internally with our own processes and what's going on with our staff?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So digital, here she is. Yeah, I'm coming. Sorry, just give me 1 sec to put the TV on.
No problems.
Straight back. Here I am. So yeah, I mean, back to your question. I mean, yeah, I mean, whole kind of industries are being digitized, like obviously accountancy and you know, issuing, for example, your invoices and reconciling all your accounts. Obviously, that's kind of one example of digitization and transformation. You know, if you, for example, you need contracts, you know, you can go into marketplaces now and buy them. You don't necessarily have to, you know, commission kind of a solicitor to go and create the contract from scratch. If you're an HR person, you know, you can basically get things, you can get basically templates and documents, again, using the power of the internet. And then you have things like AI that are also now there in the background to, for example, if you're a doctor, you know, you don't necessarily have to manually go through 100 scans yourself to flag, you know, potentially something that looks like a tumor. You have basically artificial intelligence that's basically scanning that, automating kind of manual tasks for you as a business person or as a doctor, or whatever it is that you're doing. You're now able to deploy AI as part of your back office to help you process information, and do sort of get things done a lot faster than what you used to. So, and then that in turn actually allows you to be more creative, so you can spend your time and energy on better things, adding value. So that's fascinating as well.
Makes sense. And if we are, say, we're thinking of setting up a business, or we recently set up a business, and let's say, for example, we'll go with the personal trainer side of things. We set up a fitness-based company or something along those lines, and we are is it all about, Danny? Is it all about making it as easy as possible for people to do business with us, provide maximum value to our users, to our customer base, and also make sure our internal processes are all slick? So thinking about how can we make it as easy as possible for people in this case to interact with us. So if we wanted to, if we're a PT, we could do interactive Zoom sessions. Perhaps we could allow them to easily set up everything for our website, like an online calendar to book sessions and payments, and just slickening that process. Everything they can do is either from their smartphone, their tablet, PC. Is it all about that, or is there a bit more to it? Have I just scratched the surface?
No, I think it is about that. Absolutely. I mean, still the power of the brand, the power of the story can't be understated, right? So if you're a personal trainer, you need to basically be able to tell your story, and you need to be able to tell other people's story. And when someone's coming to your website, if they are looking for you as a personal trainer, they're going to want to hear the stories, from other people as well. So even before they come to your website, there's marketing to do there as well, like because people need to hear about you and see you across 6 or 7 channels before they kind of can make their mind up. And that's generally that's kind of more B2B sales, but it also applies in B2C sales as well, where people need to hear about you. The power of the recommendation and the power of the stories is essentially what sells. But yeah, I mean, once you kind of get through that barrier, the trust and the emotional barrier, it's then about the transactional layer. How can you reverse engineer or break that down to make it as easy as possible? So typically where a lot of people stumble is with money and with trying to pay someone. Personally, like if a website today doesn't have Apple Pay, I'll probably not even bother, because for me, Apple Pay, it allows me to transact, it allows me to pay quickly. If that doesn't exist, like when I'm buying a product, it's going to put me off, because it's the convenience. It's that one sort of click approach, that kind of almost like touchless, even using your Face ID to base. So if there was a personal trainer and they would say to me, look, you don't have to bother with a credit card or cash. All you need to really do is just do Touch ID or Face ID or whatever that is. Bang, you've paid the person. Everyone's happy. That's basically what I think consumers want, or at least a lot of consumers want.
Yeah, and it sounds like just really removing the friction from all these processes. So like you said, you'd probably refuse to do business with someone that doesn't have Apple Pay. So it's removing that fact that you've got to get out your credit card, you've got to put all the details in and all the information, whereas obviously with Apple Pay, you can just scan and go. So it sounds like really removing the friction, removing the tiredness, the cumbersome processes that some digital interfaces have, whether that's your website, whether that's a mobile app, whether that's something else, and just making that whole thing as seamless and as easy to get done as possible, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about removing friction. I think that's having a frictionless experience is going to be key. I mean, of course, there are some exceptions. If you're like registering for, family genealogy website, or you're about to upload your DNA online, naturally you're going to expect a more kind of, what's the word? A more kind of stricter and kind of more secure process, because obviously you're dealing with confidential data. If you're registering for your kind of local GP online, you're naturally going to expect to have to sort of give away that personal kind of information and do kind of, and not sort of log in with Facebook or log in with LinkedIn or log in with Twitter, right? So yeah, there will be some instances where people will understand that there's more friction, and that's absolutely fine, as long as it's kind of clear to them, why that's happening.
Sure thing. And before we move the conversation forward to a more of a culture standpoint, Danny, is there anything else, perhaps from a higher level, that everyone tuning in, whether they've got a business already, whether they're thinking of setting up on their own, that they should bear in mind when it comes to digital, when it comes to transformation, that are just a few takeaways that you could note for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're asking more from a kind of a business level or consumer level.
Yeah, from more of an overview for business owners or people thinking of setting up.
Yeah, so I think first of all, make sure that you're like really kind of confident about, because obviously starting a business. I mean, I do mentor people as well who are starting businesses, and one of the things I kind of always say is like, before you kind of start a business, make sure you're confident that it's the right time to do it. Generally, you'll know in your gut if it is the right time or if it isn't, because some people will just rush to kind of start a startup without having the right sort of experience. You need to kind of live through it first. Secondly, I'd say, obviously investing in kind of your brand and your marketing and your story is really important, and kind of how you tell your story is crucial as well. Like trying to sort of develop your story and your brand and your marketing and even your name. These are things that, I mean, you can go onto Fiverr now and get a logo for $20, but it's not going to work in the long term. And having to kind of go back and change your branding every 6 months to a year is only going to do more harm than good. You're going to look absolutely ridiculous in the marketplace. So I think investing kind of in the right brand is important, but equally is the quality of your products and services. If you can't, obviously it's different advice for different types of businesses, but whatever the product or service is, it has to be really robust before you kind of go to market. So that will probably be my third piece of advice. And the fourth is just get like the right mentoring from the right people, whether it's, accountants, designers, lawyers. You need to be well mentored and build up kind of your network, and do research would be my biggest piece of advice. Ultimately the internet is there to help you. So just try and kind of, network.
All makes sense.
All
makes sense. Sound advice. So moving the conversation forward, Danny, I know from your side of things, you're pretty passionate. Before we hit record, we were talking a bit about diverse cultures. And obviously you've grown quite a hefty team over there at Cyberduck. So you've got several offices, you've got a fair amount of staff now. So why do you think having a diverse culture is important, especially now so more than before?
Well, I think there's a lot of data out there that proves that a diverse culture is actually makes businesses more profitable, more intelligent, more compassionate, more aware, more creative. So I think the Harvard Business Review study proves that businesses with a diverse leadership team, as in both kind of gender and racially as well, you get something like 37% more profit than a business that doesn't have that diverse leadership team. So it just brings loads of different perspectives to the table that you wouldn't have probably had if you weren't diverse. And obviously it's, in a way, kind of easier to be diverse when you live in somewhere like London, because you obviously have a naturally quite a diverse population as well. So, but I think with the era that we live in today, the internet connectivity, you can basically you could have a director working for you from anywhere in the world even, right? So I don't think there's any excuse for businesses why they can't be diverse today. And if you're not diverse, that's fine as well. There's no better time to start than kind of now, or at least build a roadmap which kind of includes diversity. No business is perfect in terms of diversity. Even Microsoft or Apple or Google, they're all aware of their diversity challenges that they have. So the big tech companies in America, smaller businesses, I think no business would turn around and say, look, we're perfect, right? So
sure,
it's about looking at your shortfalls and trying to build some sort of diversity policy or diversity plan, and not just kind of talk about it, but actually live and breathe it.
And do you think it's important because it helps internally? So it helps both yourself and everyone, all of your colleagues, everyone that's working for you, to get a more positive impression of the business? Or do you think it's more so externally? So when people, prospective clients or prospective customers are looking at the business, they think, oh, this is more of a wholesome business. Or is it a bit of both, or am I way off the mark?
No, it's a bit of both, really. I, genuinely, I'm the sort of guy that I love to help kind of the communities and society generally. I'm passionate about people from all religions, races, genders, disabilities. I've kind of, I used to have a neighbor next door who, an older guy who I used to just help him with his internet, and when his kind of BT box used to crash, I used to literally just walk in and help him and reboot his, top up his mobile phone with credit, rebooting his BT box. I was pretty much, I'm the sort of guy that just likes to help and give back. But at the same time, clients will also respect you and love you more if you have a diverse team. So if you go into like a pitch and there's like 6 guys, it doesn't look very, all whites. It doesn't look really diverse. So obviously you'll have female clients and they'll think, how come where's kind of the equality in this team, right? So because naturally, 50% of the population is female. So if you're not representative, then it's not going to look the best. And I think it's about, trying to just, give back to society in an equal way, as opposed to, and of course we have to understand that for thousands of years it hasn't been kind of an equal society. No, it hasn't. We have to be realistic. There's been a lot of bad stuff going on up until probably mid 20th century, when gradually you started to have equal rights and all sorts of things. So I think as a society, we've come from a very, very dark place, but I'm positive that we're going, a lot of people out there are doing a lot of good things. And, luckily our kids and our grandkids will grow up in a much better world. Again, not a perfect world, but things are getting better. So I'm optimistic.
Good. Now, moving forward, Danny, you've hired a lot of people over the years. Obviously, like we said, we run a digital marketing company. So perhaps people that are tuning in that want to go into a management level, you've of course hired and promoted people and all sorts throughout the years. So what would you say are the skills of the managers of tomorrow? What do people need to be thinking about now if they want to go into a management or senior management position? Have you got perhaps any tips or insights that might help everyone out?
Yeah, I think passion, people have to be passionate. They have to be quite stoic in their approach. I've read quite a lot of books about stoicism over the last 3-4 years that have really helped me. Like one book in particular is called The Obstacle is the Way. Ryan Holiday, who's a fantastic writer and talks all about stoicism and kind of the art of embracing failure and actually learning from it and not letting it kind of dishearten you. So I'd say probably have that type of kind of philosophy as a manager, or at least not necessarily stoicism specifically, but equivalents. There are a lot of other sort of management books, management philosophies. And another really good one is Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which anyone who's thinking about being a people's person or manager should read that book. Other kind of books that again are really kind of favorites of mine, GTD, Getting Things Done by David Allen. So again, that book talks all about managing your to-do list, how to prioritize, because if you think about it, we live in kind of a world of information overload, right? There's so much noise. There's email, there's Slack, there's Teams, there's Skype, there's Zoom, there's constantly, there's more and more data around us, and trying to kind of distill that and then know what to do first is a challenge for even the best managers. So I'd say, sort of mastering how to kind of manage your calendar, how to kind of prioritize your year, just break it down. Think about, okay, what do I want to achieve by the end of the year? What am I going to do this quarter? What am I going to do this month? What am I going to do this week? And then having like the 80-20 rule, where you need to have at least 20% of your time there available for kind of emergencies, for things, for curveballs, for things that are going to go wrong, because things are always going to go wrong. Plans are always going to need to change. And then the other piece of advice I'd give is think about, software tools. Today's managers have to be like really tech savvy, and they have to kind of be able to articulate themselves really well, communicate very well using kind of chats, which again, for a lot of managers, it's been a bit of a shock having to kind of move away from walking over to someone's desk, tapping them on the shoulder. Now you're having to chat to people kind of like through instant messaging.
Yeah, I was going to say that, Danny. With the virtual world that we're in right now, UK and a lot of other countries tuning in, it's a bit more tricky, isn't it? Because most of your team probably aren't next to you, sat down at their desk. They're probably at home. They might have kids running around. They might have their dog barking like me that you'll sometimes hear in the podcast. They might have God knows what's going on around them. So how do you keep? How can we keep our colleagues, our teammates engaged when obviously we've got all these distractions and we're doing it probably virtually via Skype or Zoom or Google Hangouts or whatever we're using, or Slack or Instant Messenger? It's made things a bit trickier, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's about like having sort of, kind of a clear head, I think is really important. So, and just kind of knowing what to do every day, like waking up in the morning, having kind of a plan of action, being able to sort of reflect back at the end of the day. Okay, what did I do today? What are my priorities for tomorrow? I think these are all kind of really important attributes. And then I think the other piece of advice that I think is probably really crucial, especially for kind of the leaders of tomorrow as well as managers of tomorrow, is about bringing the right people in to work with you. Because I always say that the most difficult thing to do in any business is actually hiring. It's not selling, it's not marketing, it's not branding, it's not building your product and service. It's the minute that you're bringing in the right people, and essentially you can kind of create the right culture by saying, okay, so who are the people that I have in the business? What are their best attributes? That's essentially your pillars and the values that you need. And then when you hire new people, you're essentially looking for people with the same quality that are going to kind of believe in that particular kind of value system that you have. And I think it's one of the most difficult things to do in any business, especially if you want to grow. But if you can get that right from the beginning, and there's kind of like lots of playbooks and kind of online staff handbooks now that a lot of kind of company, I think Valve were one of the first companies, the gaming company, the American multiplayer, that they created, I think probably about 10 years ago, they created like an online handbook about their culture. 37 Signals, again, another company that created sort of handbooks and books about kind of their attitude to work. And then once they kind of put that information out there and built that type of robust culture, the people that then applied to work there believed in those same principles. So they were able to kind of scale the business a lot faster than if they wouldn't have published those particular kind of almost manuals of how their culture should work.
Got it. And this might be a tough one, Danny, but we've been in the same boat. We've had a lot of issues with hiring staff in the past, and I'm sure most people that run a business tuning in probably have. It's one of the toughest gigs, just like you say, especially with reliable salespeople, because a lot of the time they can give it the talk, and then when it comes to actually bringing the deals in, it's a completely different ball game, and you'll find that they've not hit your targets and all sorts. Have you got one or two quick questions or strategies that you implement when you're hiring that could be of value to people tuning in, or one or two questions perhaps that you throw in the mix that you find tend to cut out the wheat from the chaff?
Yeah, first of all, hire for diversity. So to make it a principle that you hire for diversity, and make sure that in any given role that you're looking at diverse CVs. That's obviously first and foremost. Secondly, I always find that almost the layout of the CV and the content of the CV is extremely reflective of the candidate. And I'm not perfect at spelling myself, but the grammar in a kind of in a resume, and the structure and the content is that normally, if that is really, really good, you are going to have a good interview guaranteed. And then the third thing I'd say is if that person has got an online blog or some sort of really great passion, like one of the best people I interviewed in their gap year or year off, they went to Cambodia to build houses for people for free. And during the interview, I said, look, why did you do that? He said, look, I just wanted to help people. He was probably one of the most brilliant people that I hired. And it was a passion. He just wanted to, take a year, 6 months off to go and build houses for people free of charge because he likes helping. And that he was one of the smartest and, hardest working people or interns that I ever hired in my life. So, and I've hired a lot of them. So look at passion. Look at passion. Yeah. The passion,
definitely.
Even if it's outside of the role that you're hiring for, if they've been passionate about something before, they're going to do really well in your business.
Great tip. Danny, it's been an absolute pleasure. Really appreciate you coming on, dude. So for anyone that wants to learn more about Danny Bluestone, please do tell us more about how we can learn from you, how we can connect with you, and the best way to get in touch.
So yeah, obviously LinkedIn, just search for Danny Bluestone. I believe there's only one Danny Bluestone not one in the world, but one on LinkedIn. And then on Twitter as well. I'm on there. So yeah, also a website, cyber-duck.co.uk. There's various kind of other links there to things that I've done and spoken about before.
Awesome. Danny, thanks once again for coming on, dude. Really appreciate it.
Thanks. See you, everyone.
Cheers, dude. And if you enjoyed the show, be sure to hit subscribe on your podcast channel of choice for Sam's Business Growth Show, be it Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, or whatever the heck you get your podcast. We interview business leaders each and every week to give you actionable tips on sales, business growth, and digital marketing. Thanks once again for tuning in.